So we had been very closely also understanding the smart city. There was a funny saying that some people shared by the moment. It's like smart cities is like teenage sex. Everybody say that it's doing it, but nobody actually understands what really is, right? Like
You've reached the Seven Stones Indonesia podcast, where we talk with business people, entrepreneurs and influencers in Bali and Jakarta about business in Indonesia. They share their visions and insights with us in conversations around why they do what they do, which we hope will inspire you to believe you too can have a positive impact and make a difference. We hope you enjoy what they have to say, and if you do, please like, share and subscribe. Hi, welcome back to another Seven Stones Indonesia podcast, and today I'm going to be sitting down with Tomas Diez, who's the director of the Fab City Foundation and organizer of the Bali Fab Fest. And the Fab City Foundation supports a global movement to radically transform the way that we produce and consume. It's a fascinating subject, and I'm hoping we're going to pick into Thomas's brain here a little bit and get some really deep insights. But let's start out with Tomas. Welcome. Tell us, who is Tomas Diez? Where are you from, and how long have you been living in Indonesia? And give us a little bit of background.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that I should start from where I was born, because I have a hybrid background.
Okay.
You're not only where you are born, but also where you have lived. No? So I'm actually from Venezuela. That's where I was born and raised. I moved to Barcelona around the year 2006. I joined an amazing initiative in Barcelona at the Institute for Advanced Architecture of Catalonia. I had the opportunity to set up the first Fab Lab. We will go to Fab Labs later, at one of the first Fab Labs in the European Union. So I spent around 14 years in Spain, and also started programs related with digital fabrication, with bringing technology into design, new types of technology, not only computers and screens, but also machines to make things. That helped me to develop, educational programs, international networks around this topic. And, as many other people, my life changed with the pandemic. I was in the neighborhood in Southeast Asia.
Where's in the neighborhood?
I was in the Philippines in March 2020. I was invited by the British Council for an event called Making Futures.
Okay.
And then I asked the organizers, look, this is an event that is very short. I want to spend more time. And so I would like to stop in Bali. I've been coming here for the last decade to Bali every year.
Just on holiday, or
kind of
a working holiday?
Working holiday. It became holiday, and then it started as holiday, and then became kind of a working holiday. Okay. Started a project with some friends, just a small real estate project, and then started to develop some local partnerships. Trying to bring Fab Labs and this approach to innovation using technology in the island, and talked to many people during many years. But then I was supposed to stay here in March 2020 for over 2 weeks. And then I remember landing the 9th of March, and like a kind of a 10th, 11th, the airports of Barcelona were starting to shut down.
Yeah.
I talked to my now wife. I say, it seems that this is going to get nasty. I think we better spend, whatever happens in Bali. It's better than being in an apartment in Barcelona. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she flew the next day, and here we are. 2 years after, we just had a kid a month ago.
Oh, congratulations! A boy or a girl?
A beautiful girl.
Oh, fantastic! Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you so much. In Ubud.
And is that where you live here in Ubud?
I live in Uluwatu. I live in close to Niang Niang in Nungalan. Right. So I live in the very southern part of the island.
That's a nice part of the island.
Yeah, it's like a.
Do you surf?
kind of surf, yeah. I don't consider myself a surfer, but yeah, I can.
It's a good place to surf, I guess.
Yeah, from time to time, I try to surf. Yeah.
So you know, we introduced you as the director of Fab City Foundation, and we've mentioned Fab Labs, and we've mentioned Bali Fab Fest. What is Fab Labs? What is Fab City? What's the sort of inspiration, motivation, reasoning behind that? I mean, does it FAB, does it stand, is it an acronym? Does it stand for something, or is it just short for fabulous? Or
yeah, for starters, yes, it's fabulous for sure, but it's also for fabrication.
Ah, okay.
Right? Fab Lab is an acronym. It's fabrication laboratory.
Okay.
Right? And this is an initiative that starts out of the Center for Bits and Atoms at MIT.
What's that?
It's one of the research centers that are part of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT, is a highly innovative university, world known. Things like Wi-Fi, we kind of have to thank to researchers at MIT.
Right.
So the Center for Bits and Atoms, which is in the building of the Media Lab in Cambridge. Is where this crazy scientist called physicist and scientist called Neil Gershenfeld, who is a professor at MIT, is doing research with tens of millions of dollars machines, right? Like and equipment, with PhDs, and they are trying to analyze.
Any specific sort of machines? I mean,
yeah, I mean, you have like EDM machines, which is like you use like a very precise laser projection into materials to do things like I don't know, the microchips that are inside your telephones. Other type of high resolution scanners to really analyze the structures of certain living systems, and then trying to bring some of those logics from nature into design. But in general, his research is about understanding how we can create a more fluid relationship between the digital world and the physical world, right? So it's bits and atoms, atoms and bits. How we can turn bits into atoms. That means how we can use information and then translate it into the physical world using certain machines, like 3D printers or computer numerically controlled machines and other sorts of equipment. And also how we can turn atoms into bits. No, it's like how with sensors, with scanners, we can capture the physical information, bring it to the digital world, manipulate it, and then bring it back to the physical world. No. This has huge implications, right? Because until now, we have seen that the digital revolution has been mainly in the screen, right? We associate the digital with with a touch screen, with a computer, and now even things are going even more. So people are trying to bring it even more digital with all the metaverse discussion, right?
Yeah.
But the truth is that first of all, the digital world is very physical, right? Like. All the components needed to manufacture our electronic devices are dependent on natural resources, right? They, from the mines from which we take the minerals that build our microprocessors that compute all that information inside the phones and computers, to the casings. Then if you keep going, you go to the manufacturing facilities that you need to make them, to the labor. It means that you need workers working quite a lot of hours and very low wages in order to make them affordable for us. So it means like this idea like the digital is kind of a detached from the physical is not true. And then if you add to that the amount of energy that you need to power the internet, the servers that you need, the server infrastructure that we're creating is massive, right? Like when there is a new data center from Facebook, Google, or Amazon, is that basically like interventions that are the size of an entire town, right? So the digital is physical, right? But what happens now? If the whole implication of making a more fluid relationship between the two means that what happened with means that we can translate what happened with the digital revolution on the content generation, right? It means that 50 years ago, if we wanted to do something like this, we will have to go to a TV station, right? Because it was a reduced amount of organizations that had the means to create content and broadcast it, right? So nowadays, anyone basically is their own TV station. So we have become producers of content. But if we find out the way in which we connect the digital information with machines that can translate ideas, prototypes, that can go from this glass to your clothes, to devices, and make it more fluid and more accessible, then it means that we can become producers of things.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Let me just interrupt there for a sec. Is that, how connected or not is that with the idea of, what is it being called, transhumanism, where you know, Elon Musk has got this idea of putting some kind of chip in your brain to be able to do all these kinds of things. Is that what you're talking about, in the sense of, you know, making the digital aspect more a part of being human, or is it something else?
Well, I wouldn't go that far, actually. But it will depend on how people use it, right? Like, you know, we expected that we will use supercomputers in our pockets to resolve, you know, some of the most biggest challenges in our world, and then, you know, most of the people are using them for TikTok and
take pictures of
and
food.
Instagram. Right? And there are people of their, you know, in the beach. It's like a Bali. It's like the influencer, you know, mecca. You know, unfortunately, to be honest. And then what I'm talking about is, I mean, there's some level of transhumanism of the way in which we operate with these kind of tools today. For instance, I think, to make an analogy, we went to school, right? And we prove our intelligence by the amount of information that we are able to store. So it's kind of like the hard drive paradigm, right? Like, so we receive an education, I think we maybe receive like a similar type of education in which we have to prove that we can repeat things that we memorized before. Yeah,
but basically to pass tests and that sort of stuff.
Exactly,
really.
Right? So the interesting thing about the connected world that we live today is like a relational knowledge is more important. But you don't need to store, I mean, information. You have the information available at your fingers. You just need to know which information you have to look for and how to connect it to what you want to do. So it's relational knowledge. So in a way, yes, there is transhumanism, but I'm not talking about like an embedding, you know, extra hard drive in the back of our brain.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think I think it's this, you know, it's a big discussion also in Silicon Valley on how to extend life, and then they're talking about creating devices in which we can download our consciousness and then put it in, you know, Stephen Hawking
it's interesting actually. I have these discussions with some friends of mine related to that, and some of the conversations they relate to the idea of conscious and manifesting realities and creating realities from what you think and things like that. And if you think about it in one particular kind of way, the access that we have right now through things like, particularly with smartphones and laptops and that sort of thing, in a sense, that's a manifestation of consciousness, because we can already tap into absolutely everything that we need, and any question that we want. You know, my kid goes to school and he doesn't know the answer. The teacher says, look it up on Google. Yeah. I mean, everything's there. It's just a question maybe of choosing which bits are more appropriate than other bits, and not getting distracted by, you know, this was my breakfast at 10 o'clock this morning, or whatever it is.
True that. I mean, and we can also bring it to actually like which purpose we want to give it to these tools, right? Which is another big, I mean, everything, I'm sorry, because in every topic I open up like a new door and I try to go. Yeah. So and I see like there are bits that I didn't finish, but it's okay, let's go there. So if you think about like we live also under logics, you know, the logic of I think the world is pretty old, right? Like we are trying to innovate as much as possible to expand and perpetuate the logics of extraction, right? Which is like you come from a very colonial mindset, right? Like you know, I kind of know a little bit about it, and I can talk like very nicely about colonization processes. Now I'm from Venezuela. my father is Spanish. I always say like I am a colonizer and colonized, no? But it's interesting still to see these patterns being applied today in companies like Amazon, right? Like which is, let's try to find the quickest way, like the quickest route to the spices, for instance. That's what fueled the discovery of finding America. And let's try to make the maximum profits and create the maximum benefit out of it, right? And then, of course, that evolved a lot. I think Indonesia also played a quite interesting role on Indonesia, the relationship between Indonesia and the Dutch, right? Like the Dutch East Indies companies, like a kind of the first shareholder company of the world. It's kind of a modern capitalism, has been inspired quite a lot into these colonization processes. So if we don't change the purpose of technologies, then we're gonna continue innovating and creating faster phones, better AI, amazing machines, new materials that are gonna be continuing creating this pattern. And that's what's happening. It's like the Facebook machine is designed to basically capture their attention, make you as hooked as as much as possible to the screen, and sell that screen time to third parties. Which
so you in fact become the commodity in that sense.
Exactly, you are the product, right? Which is a very common statement. And I don't know. And again, like I'm not a super expert on this. People, if you want to really go deeper, you can listen to people like Yuval Noah Harari, and he wrote the book *Sapiens*, but also he's given some super interesting interviews recently about what is the risk of AI, for instance, to completely take over, right? If we follow the same logic. So that's why, again, like the purpose, I think it's something that we need to review, no? And it's not like it cannot be also from the moralistic point of view. And then we have like some kind of a judges, you get kind of a, the Catholic Church replication, and then someone telling you you're doing bad. This is not the purpose of technology. But it's trying to figure it out in through experimentation, and that's where Fab Labs, to come back, can bring an opportunity for people to get closer to technology, to open the black box and say, okay, how is a computer made? How I can make my own computer? How I can connect that computer to my needs? The same, make my own machine to process a local material that I find, to take waste and put it back into production streams. So it's this kind of initial tests, prototypes, the learning platform. That's where Fab Labs bring to the conversation, and it's similar to what cyber cafes, where we again, like I think we have seen the digital revolution, right? Like I started university, I did urban design, and we started drawing by hand. And by the time I finished, AutoCAD and all the digital tools took over, and then the generations that came after me, basically they don't touch paper almost. So I saw how, in order for you to use a computer, you need to go to a place, right? So it seems like this is the place where there is a computer. It's like internet was a place also. It's the internet cafe. Now, where is internet now? It's everywhere. And computers, there are more computers than people, right? Like in this room, I think like if we put our phones and the camera is a small computer, there's already more computers than people. The moment these computers start to think by themselves, they don't have legs, unfortunately, the phones. But if you see companies like Boston Dynamics, they can start to scare people.
So where does the Fab City come in? Is that just a place where there's a lot of Fab Labs?
Well, that's a very good statement, which I usually have to say, no, it's not. But actually, it's easy to tend to think like, okay, a Fab City is an aggregation of Fab Labs, and in a way, Fab Labs are part of a Fab City, of course, because in some way they are like at the starting point of the Fab City in one way or another. Because what we're trying to do is, and it's kind of one follows the other, right? I was talking before about the research at MIT by Professor Gershenfeld. What I didn't finish, and I diverge a bit, is that out of a collaboration with the National Science Foundation and an African-American leader in Boston, the research that Neil was doing at MIT became out of the MIT and came to an African American community in Boston.
Okay.
So the discussion was like how we can bring these amazing technologies that you are researching and make it more accessible to kids that are, abandoning school, they're getting into criminality, and say, okay, let's propose this to the National Science Foundation, and they create like an inventory of equipment in which we can teach kids about technology and give them new skills for, the world that is coming. So MIT didn't plan to have more Fab Labs than that. And then suddenly, more people started to be interested from Africa, from Norway, from Costa Rica, and said, we want to create these labs as well. It seems, kind of the right thing to do to develop skills and a new type of workforce. So they started to grow organically. So each Fab Lab is funded by its own, right? And it's kind of a space like this or bigger, could be from 50 square meter to 1,000 square meter. There are big Fab Labs in the world. And they started to pop up in different places of the world. Today, there are 2,500 Fab Labs, roughly speaking, right? And the interesting thing is that all these labs share the same inventory. It means like there's a list of equipment, of processes. It's not like McDonald's. It's not like a footnote. We don't sell machines. We don't sell Fab Labs. They're self-funded. And then what we recommend is a list of processes that each Fab Lab should contain.
Okay. Because
it's all based on global collaboration. So it's local impact, but also global collaboration. What this means that if there is a Fab Lab in Costa Rica that is working on developing agriculture sensors to improve the production of coffee, then the same design can be replicated on a Fab Lab in Surabaya, because there is the same.
So it's like an open source thing.
Absolutely, it's all based on open source knowledge, right?
Okay.
So that's the Fab Lab network, right? And actually, we also have educational programs on top of the network that are hybrid programs that happen on. I mean, there are classes online, but then the students need to learn by prototyping. So it's hands-on learning, right? So it's kind of the best of the two worlds. Like learning from Professor Neil from MIT is teaching you live from MIT, and you are in your lab in Lima, in Peru. So you're having like a MIT type education without having to go to Cambridge, right?
And I guess in a lot of senses, a lot more relevant from an educational perspective, because you're going to be studying and learning about things that are appropriate to you in Lima.
Exactly.
And it's not just the theoretical blackboard stuff. This is relevant to me and my family, and this is how we do things now.
Exactly. And then that's to go back to the from Fab Labs to Fab Cities. What we saw is that the class that we run globally in the Fab Academy is, gives the technical education and technical skills for people. It's a 6-month program that is based on Neil's class at MIT that is called How to Make Almost Anything.
Okay.
Very successful class at MIT. Now like at least 100 people attend to the class. And what we did is 10 years ago or more, we made this class not only available for students at MIT, but actually for anyone in the world that is part of a Fab Lab, right?
Okay.
So that's the Fab Academy. And again, we have graduated a couple thousand people. But then, going to the Fab City agenda, what we found is that a lot of the people was motivated about the technology itself. So it's like, it's also one of the risks, no? Like people is fascinated by technology, and then they will be using the technology just for the sake of technology, which is a criticism that we saw within the network, and say, hey, we need to start to look what's happening outside Fab Labs and connect them to the city. Okay. And then combine these skills that people is gaining with the local needs, right? And that's how Fab City comes in. Right. It gives purpose. It gives like a kind of a direction for these Fab Labs to engage in the transformation of their communities. So does
that mean, I've got in my head spinning around the idea of smart cities, and I know it's not exactly the same, but does a Fab City then have to have some kind of endorsement from central or local administration to be able to support it?
Sure. Yeah. And now you mentioned smart cities. I think smart cities are a layer of this, right? Like,
okay.
I think like the whole approach of smart cities nowadays, after over a decade, that I think like we can finally understand what they kind of are. It's funny. Barcelona was one of the meccas of a smart city development. There was a Smart City Expo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's 2011. I think was the first Smart City Expo. So we had been very closely also understanding the smart city. There was a funny saying that some people shared by the moment. It's like smart cities is like teenage sex. Everybody say that it's doing it, but nobody actually understands what really is, right? Like everybody talking about it, and but what is a smart city, So I think that now we can understand that smart cities are great to put like the infrastructure layer,
right?
The cables, the servers,
right.
The antennas, also all what the government services that can facilitate people's bureaucracy and etc. But I think like they had been lacking on engaging people into be more proactively involved in the production of the city, which is, at the end, the city is the aggregation of people's interactions, right?
Yeah.
So that's where Fab City, I think, is, and then through this idea of using Fab Labs at that first kind of entry point can really support on helping people to be more engaged into the digital revolution.
So you said before that there are how many Fab Labs around the world?
2,500, close to 2,500.
And you see that number growing clearly.
Yeah. I mean, it has been growing kind of similarly to Moore's law. So remember, Gordon Moore, it was one of the founders of Intel.
Okay.
And then there is the Moore's law. Basically he made a prediction that between 18 and 24 months, the amount of transistors in a microprocessor will double, and its price will reduce to half. Right?
Okay.
And it was very, until recently, with the introduction of quantum computing, maybe it's being challenged, but consistently for the last 40 years or so, we have seen like that is happening.
Okay.
So that's why computers get faster and cheaper, right?
Yeah.
So with the Fab Labs, it's kind of happening. Like it kind of double between 24, 30 months. So we have seen that the amount of labs keeps growing, and this is we call Lasse's law, which is for Sherry Lassiter, which is one of the key persons that had been helping this network growing.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely this is growing, and again, like I jumped topics and I forget to completely answer your questions, but you were asking before about the smart city, and the level of endorsement that we need from Fab Cities, right? So
level of like political will behind what it is that you're doing.
Exactly.
Right?
No.
Because all of this is great.
Yeah.
If you don't have the political will that you need to be able to move it forward, then it's not really going to go anywhere.
Yeah, I agree. And then that's why the Fab City Global Initiative has been, in the other, apart from supporting Fab Labs and helping them to be more relevant to their communities, because it's also a matter of their own existence. It's like, nobody's going to keep you alive if you are not relevant to anyone but yourself, right? So we have been, another part of our work has been totally focused on engaging local governments, right? Okay. And actually, the Fab City network, which is it's now 41 cities. We have like the signature of their mayors and some cases cities, regions, and even countries. We have as members of the initiative. They get the official commitment of their authorities, of the publicly elected authorities, but also the involvement of the local innovation ecosystem. Right. Like, so we see the need that creating that.
Well, that allows you to tap into schools and universities.
Correct.
And things.
Yeah. And also like other type of organizations that operates differently, right? Like innovation organizations, NGOs, and so on. No? So each one of these cities are requested to have a kind of a local consortia, which involves the public government, but also the civic society. And And we don't expect too much from governments, to be honest, right? It means like we expect the endorsement and their support. And then one of the things that we do say is like we're giving the excuse for this, the active actors of the city, to go and tell to the local government, it's like, hey, you committed to do this.
Yeah.
We actually want to do this, and that. How you're going to support us, right? So we want to facilitate that relationship between the local forces that are really pushing, you know, open source innovation, you know, climate technologies. They're tackling social issues that it's going to be impossible that the government will do it. So they're doing it, and basically they don't have the right connection with that kind of a higher level to scale things up, no? Yeah. So we want to facilitate that through the creation of the Fab City network.
And Bali's going to be is already a Fab Lab place, or is it a Fab City already? What's the Bali angle with this?
It's slowly becoming, I have to say. There are a few maker spaces in Bali, which kind of bring in the discussion of the digital fabrication technologies, like what I was saying before, the inventory, the machines that can process digital information. And some people say, why we need that? Well, because one of the key components of this is the global knowledge exchange, right? So it means that you can literally download any design and then modify it and adapt it to your local needs, and then the other way around. So there is kind of an interesting local capacity in place. There are also so many initiatives that are related with sustainability, plastic recycling, people innovating with mycelium as a new material for construction.
That's fascinating, that subject. Have you seen that documentary? I think it's on Netflix. Called Fantastic Fungi.
Of course, Paul Stamets.
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, we're fan of Paul Stamets' work, and a lot of our students have been working on creating mycelium as an alternative material, or playing with mycelium as a construction. I've been seeing,
even in construction things, I've been following that in the last couple of weeks. That's very interesting.
Yeah, so that can replace like EPS, which is expanded polystyrene,
right? Which
basically doesn't degrade ever, and it's everywhere. We use it for packaging. There's a lot of innovation on mycelium for packaging. So that component is embedded of this idea of changing dramatically how we produce and consume, right? Or radically, meaning like it's not only the machines, but it's also the materials, right? What that we need, because I think it doesn't make sense if we give more machines to people that are fed with plastics that are gonna, single-use plastics. It will be a disaster. So it's thinking also more holistically about this local production capacity.
There's clearly a lot in here that we're slowly unpacking, I guess. We might have to sit down and do another one of these talks. But there's something that's kind of interesting to me about the idea of something that you call, I think, a solutionist culture.
Yeah.
And you started out by saying production and consumption, and explain what this solutionist culture is, and are you proposing that, for example, that we produce things in a different kind of way for different kinds of purposes, and what is it, the sort of the bottom line with all of that?
It's hard to say. I mean, for me, it's difficult to kind of predict. Right? I want to make sure that I'm not predicting how things are going to be, but I can try to look at how things have been. Right? One of the problems I see with solutionism is that, and it comes from an industrial mindset. Right? When under the industrial paradigm, the production of a thing involves a series of actors, right? That goes from the design to the manufacturing to the logistics and to distribution, and then commercialization, and then finally consumption, right? So that apparatus is based on it's looking always like it's to increase efficiency, increase efficiency. So what is efficiency? Reduce the amount of time that something gets from one place to another, another efficiency, reduce the costs associated with its production. So this is why, basically, among many other reasons, why we have a standardized production. It means that one product is made millions of times, right? And then we need to buy it and consume it, right? And again, all these apparatus behind. So Victor Papanek, which is an interesting person also to look for and more to go deeper into these principles of design. Usually, he states in the beginning of one of his famous books called "Design for the Real World." He says, industrial design is one of the most dangerous disciplines for humans and any other form of life in the planet, because this is people that they create products that people do not need using materials that they don't biodegrade. They put it out, and then they work with advertisement companies on creating the false need to buy that product, right? So when you start to bring the production means closer to people, then you slowly start to break that, right? You're starting to say, okay, maybe I don't need to produce 10 million of glasses and sell them, but I can produce on demand, right? So, which is one of the things that digital fabrication introduces, right? Instead of having warehouses, I can produce on demand what I need. Another thing that I think introduces is the potential of materials to be sourced differently, right? One of the principles here that could apply very well is the urban mining, or start to extract from waste, the possible new materials that can be reinserted in the production line. It introduced logics also of designing more modular stuff, right? I can make a very simple modular system that can be a table, can be a shelf, right? Or can be, I don't know, a fan like I use when a hot day. I can also use, I can build it from a motor of a washing machine. No, it's the same piece, right? So we start to have things that are highly standardized that are not relevant, and then we have another layer of things that are highly customized that can be produced on demand. So, and then it has the potential to involve the person on not being only the consumer, but actually being part of the customization process, right? It's kind of a co-designer. So you have many examples of people that have, or companies that are creating interfaces for people to customize the furniture, and then they order on demand, right? It happens with some shoe companies, mountain bikes, etc., etc. So it's this kind of a mass customization that is also interesting to see. So that has huge implications on this notion of how we make things. So also, there is not only one solution to rule them all, right? They say this idea of we need to find, we are expecting that Elon Musk to solve the world's problem. And it's not possible. Impossible. Yeah. Basically, because your problems are different from mine, different from yours. They're attached to kind of a cultural configuration. They're attached to a context. Their priorities. It's this whole idea that someone else is going to solve the problem, or the government is going to solve the problem. It's the opposite in most of the cases. So what we're saying is we need to create the conditions for people to figure out how to address their problems, right? And understanding that also that when you solve a problem, you create 10 more. It's as simple as that. And then we need to understand.
And is this the solutionist?
Yeah, it's
concept?
The solutionist things. My criticism is that first, it takes you are a person. There is that solution for you and for that applies to anyone, right? Standardized mindset. The second one is that so the first one is this. The second one, what I was saying before about the. This is when you told me that this is the solutionism.
It was related to the what was it right at the start where we were talking about production and consumption, and it was part of that cycle of things.
I got the thread back. So so is this idea that also a solution is not an end, right? Like it's not like here's the solution to the world's problem. You know,
right.
I don't know. I was gonna say vaccines, but I don't want to enter the kind of a polemic topic. But but you can use it, no? Like here's the solution to one virus, but actually creates all a change of problems that are, as you can associate it, you know, with social problems, with cultural problems, or even medical problems, right? So there are consequences to solutions that we introduce into places. So that's why it's so dangerous that you have someone like Elon Musk, which basically is kind of detached from reality, to solve anyone's problems, to be honest. So what we need to work is on providing people the means, the tools, the skills to be able to address issues, understanding that they create problems, and then having like, it's a continuous process, right? I think like when you reach certain age, you also realize that, okay, it's about managing problems continuously, right? So it's like, and it's fine, like it's fine. The problem is when you are totally disenfranchised and disengaged with that. So the government tells you, or the companies tell you, don't worry, I take care of everything. I created the solution for you. The moment that breaks, you are screwed. And the problem is that it's gonna break. Right. Certainty, 100% for sure, the government is gonna fail one day. 100% sure, the shareholders of X company were gonna be pissed off and say, no, get it out. And then you were relying on a company that doesn't exist anymore. And
just everything collapses around it, like a house of cards, really.
Yeah, exactly. So we're seeing that happening. And then if we need to build, I mean, it sounds a little bit catastrophic, but we need to build a system, you know, our systems for disaster in a way. Also because we are seeing like the global consciousness about the problems that we're dealing with in relationship with the climate and our current economy. We see that there's the small sign that this is going to change in the short term.
You're obviously seeing potential in doing this and sharing these concepts and ideas in Bali.
Yeah.
Why? What's Bali got that you think could help other people?
Well, I think like, first of all, our approach is not, or at least my approach is not, I'm not coming here to save anyone, right? First of all, it's actually to learn.
Right.
No, it's this feeling like there's something mysteriously working here, and you want to try to figure out how it works, right? And then when you start to scratch the surface and go a little bit deeper, then you start to understand the Banjar organization, for instance. And for me, it's fascinating the way in which smaller communities have agency over a territory. They can really decide kind of planning, urban planning in a way, right?
Yeah, totally.
Consensus building, right? It's also fascinating. It's not like the half plus one agrees, the rest screw. No, it's like
you've all got to agree.
We have to agree. It takes longer. What else? Trihita Karana, of course, right? Like it's a kind of a big slogan.
Which is a super concept, really. It's amazing how many people, particularly in the hospitality industry, how many people actually take that on board and try to implement all of that in their properties, in the way they deal with clients and things like that. It's a super concept.
It's a game changer, right? And it's so easy at the same time. It's so simple. We had a group from the United Nations, and at Jimbaran Hub, we hosted it's called the Sustainable Development Goals Hack, SDG Hack. And as you know, to be honest, I don't understand the Sustainable Development Goals. It's 17 principles in which supposedly the world needs to be moving. You know, the UN became this kind of, I don't know what, if it's useful or not. It's something very difficult to figure out. But at the end, it's kind of very complicated, right? Like if you want, and then it became, of course, a kind of a marketing thing. You put the SDG logo, and then you're supposed to be doing good for humanity. But this guy, these people, they were at the end of the event, and they were making a reflection of like, oh, you know what? Like maybe when the SDGs are over, because they're supposed to be over, I think by 2030. We need to introduce something more simple. Maybe it should be the Trihita Karana.
Maybe.
And that's it.
Personally, I mean, I've been here for quite some time, and I think that Indonesia in general, and Bali specifically, there are aspects of living here, social aspects and cultural aspects of living here that the rest of the world could learn so much from. So much. Just the way, like you say, even the Banjar system, it's crazy how efficient that seems to be, and how everyone is looked after. We have no social security as such, got no pensions as such, and all that sort of stuff. But how many poor people do you see living out on the streets? How many granddads and grandmas whose kids have left them do you see? You don't.
Exactly.
There's this wonderful sense of community here, which I think could be taught to a lot of places.
That's the thing. Like we, and again, like I live in Europe for 14 years, and I saw like how important it is to trust the system, right? And again, like for me, it comes like this intuition that the system, first of all, I don't think is fair. I don't think the way in which Europe operates is fair with the rest of the world. It's very Eurocentric.
Very much.
So it means like everything else at the service of Europe, as it has been. So that's it was some uncomfortability. It was uncomfortable for me living that comfort. Right. I have the Spanish citizenship. I can, get my pension.
Only because you know what's going on elsewhere. I mean, if you were blind to what was going on elsewhere, then there would be no reason for you to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the frog in the boiling water, right?
Yeah, sort of like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but then when you have the opportunity to be, exposed to this other reality, it's like okay, this is a calling. So it's also part of a calling of being here, right? Like and again, I'm not a life coach or a kind of a spiritual guru. I'm trying to figure out, how we can address differently these massive problems that we're having.
Do you see these ideas then kind of Bali being fertile ground for these ideas?
There you go. So I think like the interesting thing I see is, and we call it like a creative tension that we can create between technology, these machines, digital fabrication machines, and crafts. How they, this creative tension means like yes, you can say, oh, you're introducing a 3D printer that is going to remove or going to take over the ceramic artisans or craftsmen and craftwomen. It's like, wait, no, maybe they complement each other, right? Like, and then you can apply that to many things. Also, this kind of the local versus the global, right? Like what can learn from each other. And that's, I think, like a part of the interesting, it's like the opportunity of creating different outcomes. Again, which is, I've been in academia, I've been teaching, I'm a PhD dropout at UCL London, funded by Intel, kind of in deep, kind of the place to be. It's like something is broken here, right? Like something is boring. I know what's gonna be the outcome. I graduate, I get my PhD, and then I just basically go around the world putting in the face of other people I am a PhD, and that's my great achievement. And I write some papers about things, and maybe someone publish it or get some relevance. I found it like, okay, that's a way to go, and I respect it, but it was more of a calling on, okay, let's figure out things outside the world and outside in the real world, outside the bubbles, right? Like I was in an academic bubble. I've been in and out an academic bubble. I felt like Europe is becoming a bubble, really, and I can understand why that bubble makes a lot of sense for many people. But yeah, you just have a calling, and then it's like, okay, let's then go to Bali, and then let's create the conditions to create different outputs, and then use all this knowledge on science and innovation and education that I had been building for all these years. Let's find local people crazy enough to do it, and let's figure out something together. And that's what we're doing now. That's a meaningful design group.
I think the timing is perfect, because I know Indonesia. I've been writing a lot about sort of government initiatives, particularly towards MSMEs, the micro, small and medium enterprises, where they're really trying to push the idea of digitaling things. So, trying to get more people using technology to be able to enhance and solve very local communal problems that these guys might have.
So there's a limitation there, like because it's
for sure there is.
Because the digitalization, the digital transition, the digital transformation, again, I've seen it many places. It's in the screen, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like okay, let's make an app of it, right? Like and let's make a design thinking workshop with some post-its, and then you create a service, and then you create an app that delivers that service, and it's like, okay, that's it. But there is, again, like the other potential is, for people to figure out not only digitally thinking about the screen, but the other kind of tools that can help you to, build with alternative materials.
Right.
Can help you to develop new products, right? A new type of products that are not only static products, but they can be interactive. So there's a whole potential of innovation there, and the true digital, I believe. No, in what I'm saying, the true digital is a digital revolution that understands that it depends highly on the physical world, first of all, and can be used also to transform our reality, to design our reality differently. So that's, I agree with you. The timing. Again, I'm still learning from Indonesia. You learn that you know that timing better than me for sure, but it just feels good. It feels good.
Yeah.
It feels good. We met the governor of Bali a couple of months ago, and he's pushing all these ideas. We were in the Bali Digital Fest. Yeah. It was in Sanur, and it was more in the screen side of things and the metaverse and things. Like, okay, great, but we have the Fab Fest, which is, and then when you put the two, it's like a digital fab, right? Digital fabrication, and it's like, yeah, of course, this is what we need to do. Like, we can start to support local entrepreneurs. We can engage people into ancient craftsmanship through new technology. So you get like a new type of artisan that combines digital and kind of a more traditional approaches. You can bring farming, making it more fun and more interactive by introducing, again, digital. So it's not only the screen, but it's...
How restrictive is the cost of that for a local entrepreneur? Are they going to find it difficult to do what you're suggesting because they simply can't afford some of the technology, or is it something that's pretty much open to everybody?
I mean, it's like again, the price of smartphones has been decreasing like consistently. At least like even the low entry ones, you can get like for a couple, for $100, you can get a smartphone nowadays. Yeah. And of course, as much as you go to the top, you get like more features, faster, AI embedded in the thing, blah, blah, blah. So it's happening with the digital fabrication machines as well. So if you go to Tokopedia, you can find for a couple $100 kits to assemble your own small laser cutter or 3D printer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can find electronic equipments to build your own circuit boards, relatively, again, accessible price. And then what is interesting is like combined to that, then you have all the internet's database on people sharing and uploading open source designs of things and instructions on how to do it. Like one great example of that has been inspiration for the world has been the Precious Plastics project. This was a master thesis of a Dutch student called Dave Hackens. So he basically decided, I'm going to do my master thesis. I'm graduating as a product designer. And then what I'm going to do is design a series of machines that can help communities to capture plastic waste and turn it into new materials. So you can make like a flat sheet that you can use to build furniture. You can build 3D printing filament, or you can create like a small injection molding plastic machine. So you make a mold and then you can basically make cups or whatever things that you need to produce in a standard way. So what happened is that this, again, it's a master thesis, and he created a website. He created a few very nicely done videos by my friend Mattia, and then he started to share it with the world. And then now there are over 200,000 people in the world that have produced these machines.
Crazy.
And they have a bazaar where there's people, they can sell the machines, they sell products made with the machines, and it's created like a very small plastic economy, right? But that exists even if the entire world is moving in the other direction.
Yeah.
Right. So that for me, like they haven't changed. Like God, but they're going completely against what we're being told, which is buy, waste,
and consume.
Yeah, don't care.
Yeah.
Right? So these are examples. Imagine if also RepRap 3D printer was started by Professor Adrian Boyer and Vic Oliver in the University of Bath in the UK, right? And what they did is that they took some open source electronics that with some motor controllers, and then they put together a list of parts that you can buy from a hardware store that help you to assemble a machine, put 4 motors, technically speaking, and then publish it open source. And that's a RepRap 3D printer. And then what is interesting about the RepRap is that it's able to print parts of other machines. So in a way, it's a machine that in a small percentage, maybe 20, 30% of the components can build itself, right? Which is part of our roadmap in Fab Labs, basically, to build machines that make machines. The moment we do that, we make it even more accessible. But what is interesting about these projects, Precious Plastics, Arduino, which is another project, super interesting project related with electronics, or RepRap, is that the moment they go out there and they are available, they basically are unstoppable. They're like a light. It's not a solution. I don't know how to call it. It's because it's a great project that has transformed entirely ways of designing and making.
It's interesting that you should kind of focus on that a little bit, because for me, the idea of a solution is finite. Here's a problem. What's the solution? Here's the solution. No more problem. So there's a finite end to it, right? But by using the word solution, if you get rid of the word solution, and I guess it ties into your idea then of this solutionist culture. Yeah. If you get rid of that, then it's always going to be evolving and applying and adapting itself to your particular needs and wants, right? Exactly. It's not going to stop just because we found the solution to it.
Exactly. And that's changing. They change so much, right? Like I was saying before, in a dramatic way, that we were going to collapse, right? Like the collapse for me is like the collapse of the existing way of doing things. It doesn't imply also total devastation. It could, right? But definitely, like one of the things that we know is that things are going to change. Yeah. Right. So we need to build systems or even mindsets that are ready to deal with that change, right? Deal with change, and I think like we have. I think maybe a lot of the mental problems we have now as a society go with the fact that there is a group of people that is very interested, or many groups of people that are interested in that make you understand that there are things that do not change. Right. Right. And then whatever happens to your life, these things don't change. Yeah. Right? And what's happening is that these things start to change as well, right? Like again, religion, the perception of religion, how it's practiced, the connection with the spirituality is changing, right? The family structure is changing. Government is changing. Global supply chains are changing and being challenged, and energy.
And it seems that we're not really equipped, either through education or societies. We're not really equipped to deal with that change.
No.
I mean, if for example, God forbid, but if, for example, everything just got switched off today, what would most of the world do? Probably go into chaos, and something bad is most likely to happen if that's the case,
I think we make just experiment of turning off the internet. That's enough to I don't say even electricity, I say internet, and including.
Well, you've been here for Nyippie. For the New Year here. That I think is a model that could be used all around the world on a thing. I know they have Earth Hour in European cities. I mean, okay, great, you switch off the electricity for an hour and see what happens. It doesn't make any effect at all. But here, when you switch the island off, no aeroplanes, no ferries, no TV, no electricity, no this, no that, what are you left with? The only thing that you're really left with is some kind of meditative reflection about your existence and your relationship with your environment and who you're around at the time.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely concept, I think, to welcome in a new year.
Yeah, and again, it's another thing that I believe that places like Bali have to share with the world, right? Like, but the world, I don't know. Like sometimes I see as well, like we have this excitement many times, like, oh wow, this, you know, people can get inspired by this, but I believe like there's certain arrogance as well, right? Like again, like the complex of superiority. That's again, like I've come from the West. Like the West has in relationship with the rest of the world, it's also making things difficult.
Oh, for sure. It's a very neo-colonialist mindset that most of the Western world has. Yeah, for sure.
And it's this idea of progress and kind of, again, happiness, success, that is based on what? It's like that you achieve to get like a work in a government, and then you get like a salary for the rest of your life and a pension, and you know that you're going to be in the bar in the corner, drinking coffee, going there every day, watching football. It's like is that, or is, you know, or is the
oh God.
or is the, you know, the farmer, you see the 85-year-old farmer being able to squat perfectly and super fit and keep feeding their cows,
and it's got the body of a 30-year-old, you know. Amazing.
Know, like
amazing.
You know, it makes you wonder, right? Like that is questioning these things that I believe are needed, and again coming back. The opportunities that Bali gives is like can expose things. So I think like things also, maybe, I don't know if it happened to you, but I feel like things magnify here as well. I don't know. You can also link it to the levels of energy. Many people think like Bali is a very special place in the world among other places. One of those places that you go and things get magnified. So you have a lot of BS around you. You will see that BS manifesting very clearly. Okay, you know, or great things manifest as well, no? So, and then imagine how interesting could be to have Bali as a permanent experimentation place.
Is that the plan?
That's a plan. Yeah, that's a plan. That's a plan. Like to also to start to think about not only Bali but places like Bali in which you can what I was saying, no, like trying to create the conditions for things to happen, and like provide the tools and the means for people to find, you know, ways to solve their problems, right? Like, and the potential I see here as well is like, I don't think that this is ever going to go back to the levels of visitors that it had before. There's a lot of limitations of international travel. There, you know, certain patterns are changing, but I believe there is an opportunity on changing the type of travelers that you want to attract in Bali, right? And many places in the past had a lot of success of creating like a, you know, the kind of a university, you know, like identity, like a Bologna, for instance, or Salamanca in Spain. It's kind of, you know that there are universities, and you have, you know, like more than half of the population of a place is temporary, exactly, where students that are there studying. The only criticism I do to that is like they go, they study, they go and they learn in the classroom, they go get drunk, and they go back to their dorms, right? Like it's like I'm learning in the classroom. So imagine that instead of the classroom being the place where people learn, is the communities, it's in the backyard. So you basically have like the island is a campus itself.
I love that. There was something that I read that you wrote that was suggesting that the planet is a university campus.
Yeah,
and that's a really nice thought to kind of to keep reinforcing to people, because I think you're right.
No,
you know,
and it doesn't take too much effort to do it. That's the other thing. Like I don't know, we don't need to ask permission to the UN or to someone to do it. We have 2,500 Fab Labs that have been self-organized and created. So we just need to kind of connect the dots a little bit. And then we have done it with this Fab Academy program I was telling you, bringing university education to anywhere in the world. So now we're creating a master program actually called the Master in Design for Distributed Innovation, where this approach of, you know, the community is your campus, is your classroom, and the planet is your campus. it's being tested. We're starting in October. We actually want to set up a node here in Bali.
Oh, very good.
It's open for applications. No, so these are the kind of things that I believe that digital enable, right? And the question is like, I don't know why these things are not happening. Again, it's like this tension of like you are valid and you can perform certain things for society because there is this institution that tells you that you can do so. Where I'm more and more exposed to people that are being self-taught, and those are the most creative people that are able to think more in a more flexible way in relationship with the problems that we have.
Yeah. And you've got this event happening up in Jimbaran, which is at the Bali Fab Fest.
Yes.
That's going to be in September, October?
October 12th to 22nd.
Okay. And whereabouts in Jimbaran?
It's at the Jimbaran Hub.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a relatively newly created space. It's a very open space where there is a co-working, a cafe, but it's also a series of interventions that my friend and partner Agun is doing there with his team on I think it's an interesting approach to development also. So
what would somebody expect to find, learn, going to the Bali Fab Fest?
Yeah, so this is the thing, like at Jimbaran Hub there's already things happening that are kind of a more sustainable way of developer to create a project, right? Intervening in a land, not only like make a resort, build the walls and milk the cow, but it's how we can create a community and it's placemaking, more like an ideal behind. So that's where the event will happen with kind of those principles around it, right? Like there's a reason for being there. The event, basically the way I put it is like we want to show how in 10 days the potential of having Bali as a permanent campus. So in a way, we are creating a sample of the potential of bringing this creative tension between international, local, advanced, traditional, machines, crafts.
Right.
Put them in the same place for 10 days with the right tools and the
so
right
there'll
skills.
be like workshops and
it's a fully hands-on event, and there will be workshops creating new materials out of waste, to making your own machines, to putting sensors into nature, to I don't know, we can keep going, to textiles manufacturing, right? Like with using digital technologies, and that's very different from any other type of event. Of course, we will have some presentations and people in the screen drilling with PowerPoints. But that's kind of a secondary. Like the main objective of the event is for you to have a hands-on experience. And then on top of the event, or in parallel, but as part of the event, we have the Fab Island Challenge, in which 10 local initiatives are partnering with international partners on addressing some of the local problems of Bali, or welcoming some international innovations to land into Bali.
In a real-time experience, or I'm imagining now that you've got some guys live chatting with some dudes in Venezuela about some issue that they found, and they're sharing the issues and ways that they've managed to come some kind of solution to it all. Yeah,
I mean, a prototype, right? Like, it will mostly happen on site.
All right.
So there will be these international teams. All of them are going to be here.
Oh, they're physically going to be here. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we have, for instance, Cesar Harada, which is a quite known innovator that set up a makerspace in Hong Kong. He's going to be working on developing open source and DIY system to generate hydrogen energy, generate energy from hydrogen. And we're partnering him with some local researchers of the Udayana University.
Very good.
So we will have also Manu Prakash, which is he has his own laboratory in Stanford, Prakash Lab. Manu is working on with open source technologies for capturing data from the environment, basically. So it's making like a low-cost sensing devices.
Right.
He's the one that's behind the $1 microscope, which was really well-known project worldwide. A few years ago, he's a multi-awarded innovator in the world, right? So we have Stanford collaborating with local...
With Sanor.
Yeah, exactly. So that's
fantastic.
And then sharing the same mindset, no? It's like it's as important the science as to working with the community.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the thing for this kind of
this
kind of researchers. We have Anouk Wiprek also. She develops fashion using digital 3D printing, but also embedding sensors and actuators. So she has dresses that move, and then she has collaborated with some of the world's more renowned fashion designers. Neil Gershenfeld himself, which is the father of Fab Labs, will be here with us. And then alongside with some really local, incredible people like Janur Jasa behind Plastic Exchange and CNN Hero. Pakmade Artana, who has been from BitHub, he's doing this, he's trying to bring Banjars into the digital, bringing digital technologies to Banjars, and has a super interesting project on, approaching innovation through the Bale Banjars, which is this the buildings that each Banjar has, but how we can make it not only as a place where the community gathers to do ceremonies or to practice music, but also to come to innovate about the local problems. So that's super relevant.
It's great.
Yeah, Nadia Fabina doing ocean thermal infrastructure. So it means that generating energy out of the change of temperature between water in the ocean. It's like clean energy generation, basically. Orin Hardy from the Hardys of the Green School, doing changing completely the approach to bamboo education in Bambuyu. And I can keep going. And there are many, many of them.
And it's over a 2-day period? 3-day period? A week?
10 days.
It's a 10-day thing.
Yeah. You know why? Because, we're expecting that at least 50% of the participants come from overseas.
Okay.
Right? We don't want them to fly, in some cases, long distances only for a weekend. So we are inviting them, first of all, it's also with this idea of a new type of tourism that is more long-term. Right?
Yes.
And more engaged with local problems.
Yeah.
So you go to a place, you don't go, take a picture, go, get wasted, go. But it's actually, you go to a place, you engage into a local challenge, you learn from that, you give your skills, you go back home, right? And with the maximum we could do is 10 days. If we go more, it will be too much to handle, but 10 days, we believe that we can handle it. But then we're inviting people to stay longer. And actually, there's a few people from MIT, Manu from Stanford, they will stay over a month.
Fantastic.
Right, and so we want this should be the permanent travel. That's what I was trying to get this idea of, like, what is the post-pandemic model? What could be Bali post-pandemic? So this could be this kind of an amazing place that attracts these innovators to come and spend time.
It's a super idea for how you could move away from this mass tourism concept into something a lot more wholesome.
Yeah, people will still have fun. They still can surf.
But the spin-off benefits for everybody are going to be profound.
Yeah, they can still spend in the local economy. They would, because that's the argument of the tourism, right? We want people to come and spend money.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but it's relative, right? Because what you see, is, first of all, is that forces local services to be the low-value services.
Yeah.
It's like it's people that is being trained to be waitresses, to be drivers, to be chef, and cooking is maybe like a more cultural thing. But it's service economy, right? Like you have people doing like what some very interesting academics will call bullshit jobs, right? Like it's kind of a meaningless jobs that it only gives you money to basically,
spend on things you don't really need.
You don't need.
Yeah. And there's the cycle.
Exactly, right? So then, but the providing people the tools and the means and the skills, and maybe not to everyone, right? Like, but the tools, the skills, and the means to figure out the things by themselves.
Sure.
It brings, and I think like also the relationship between someone that comes for a weekend to get wasted and goes back to Perth, and with a person that comes for a month and comes in engaging with an innovation project in a vineyard in Bedugul, the relationships that they create are completely different.
Yeah.
Right? It's not my driver, my waiter, and that by child. It's like, okay, let me understand from you. Let me understand your culture. Let me bring what I know on how to address what you need to address, and that definitely that's more value. That's adding value permanently in each iteration. I think that
it's got a much longer term implication too. You know, because like you say, the way that the tourism industry, not just here but in most places, works, it's very wham bam, thank you ma'am, you know, and that's it. And what you're talking about really is to start to build communities within communities that then grow globally, if you want, where a lot of people are thinking, you know, my banjar is my classroom, if you like, and the place that I live is actually part of this greater picture. It's part of this bigger campus.
Totally, and it has economic implications. This is not some kind of a theoretical thing and a moralistic lesson that I want to give to resort owners. I don't totally not. I'm just saying like there's a business opportunity here. I've been also working on the education business, right? Well,
the interesting thing I think about that, Thomas, is the idea of impact investment. You know,
exactly,
because we at Seven Stones, we do a lot of things around investments, and we encourage people to invest in Indonesia. And one of the things that we've been writing about over the last couple of years is the idea of impact investment and how that can have a much more profound effect on the community
and returns,
and it returns tenfold.
Yeah, also from the investor perspective, right? It's like you want to be, you as an investor, let's say you're a brand or you are whoever, right? Like the returns, again, it returns to you, not, again, you're not milking a cow and the cow is getting skinnier. The cow will die someday if you don't feed her. Yeah. Right? So I think like the opportunities for these impact investors are huge because they get like a better appreciation as a brand. They basically around them create positive impact. This creative, you know, depending who you ask, it creates good karma. And
well, in a place like this, it's important.
Exactly, and then it's making, you know, the cow healthier. It means their milk is going to be healthier. Yeah. It means that you drink milk that is healthier, that is going to make you healthier. It's like a hello, right? Like but then it's like again the short-termism, the short-term vision. Sometimes the solutionism is the kind of a fast returns. Yeah, bye. I'm going to spend this on a yacht in Dubai, in a dead place. It's like okay, it's great. Yeah. No, thank you.
I tell you, Thomas, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. And I think we should get together again after your Bali Fab Fest, so that we can, and maybe we'll come up and have a look and maybe chat with you while you're up there.
Would love to invite you, of course. And
but definitely catch up afterwards and see what the reaction and impact was with all of that. Yeah. You know, so you know, for all of you out there that are interested, it's Bali Fab Fest, and it's at Jimbaran Hub on
October 12th.
Sorry, October
12th to 22nd.
12th to 22nd of October. If you're interested, you can get in touch with Thomas directly, or if you want to get information from Seven Stones, you can get in touch with us too. Thomas, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Amazing.
Have a great day.
You too.